Welcome back, everybody. This is the thejonnymar, and I'm continuing with Final Fantasy II for the PSP. So in between episodes, I did a little bit more of level grinding, focusing on, of course, building up my magic. And in this episode, we are going to head to what is called the Tropical Island, or the Black Mask Island. And that is because we need to pick up the second mask in order to access the Crystal Rod, which will allow us to access Ultima. So notice again, my spells are a little bit stronger in the level 5 to level 6 range, and during this episode I'm going to be building up Swap during random encounters. Other than that, it really is pretty straightforward. The next couple of dungeons, I'm going to try to squeeze 2 dungeons into this episode because the next 2 dungeons aren't super long. They just, of course, have a really high encounter rate, and the dungeon we're going to now, the Tropical Island dungeon, what's notable about it is that it basically is very, very kind of mazy. And so there's a lot of dead-end paths. You also have to do a lot of kind of going down a few floors and then coming back up a few floors. So what I'm going to try to do with that is note the kind of intersection points where you have to choose which way you want to go. And then I will let you know when I'm going back to those points. And again, really, for the most part, if you don't want to collect all the treasure in these next couple dungeons, you don't have to, because a lot of the treasure, especially in the Tropical Island dungeon, is not that useful. It's stuff that you already have. Now, there are a couple exceptions to that, and I will let you know what those are, but for the most part, a lot of the treasure is pretty useless. But let's head in and check this place out. Now, in the NES version, this place looked really weird. It was green and it kind of had these vines growing all over the place. So I do like the way they kind of reskin this to make it look a little bit more like a cave. So our first few chests we're going to pick up, again, not super useful, but there are a couple items in them. The first floor here is not super straightforward. Again, a lot of dead ends, very high encounter rate. You're going to be facing, for the most part, pretty easy enemies. This is a welcome kind of break from previous dungeons. They actually lowered the damage level of most of the enemies in this area. For the most part. I mean, they're still somewhat challenging, but they're certainly not as challenging as past enemy groups have been in the last few dungeons we've gone through. The enemies of note for you, I'll kind of point out when I face them. They are what are called flan enemies, or used to be called flan, or are called flan enemies in other games. And here are a couple of them, the red moose and the yellow jelly. And so these guys, for any person who has played a Final Fantasy game, you know they are very, very strong to physical defense, but they are really weak to a particular element. And so the red mooses are weak to thunder, and the yellow jellies are actually weak to fire. Now, as you've been walking around outside of Mysidia, you may have also encountered the black flan, and that thing is actually weak to fire as well. So just blast them quickly with your spells, and you will kill them very fast. The rest of the enemies you're going to face are typically things like dual heads, dual deads, you'll fight a bunch of undead, you'll fight some kind of what are called vanilla enemies, which means basically they don't really do anything special. They just kind of attack you with physical attacks. And this is our first intersection that we'll be coming back to. So to start with, we're going to go to the left because this leads to a dead end. And then once we finish the dead end, we'll come back to that intersection and continue onward to the right. So you're going to fight things like Killer Mantis, and other enemies. There's enemies like the Poison Toad. There are enemies that look like rhinoceroses. And here we are in the Tropical Island kind of village area. Did you know there was a group of creatures down here? There is, and they have weird masks. Although they think we're weird looking because we don't wear a mask. And so these are kind of the keepers, I guess, of the Black Mask. They don't want us to take it because it's a very prized artifact for them. but obviously we need it. And I think if we were able to explain to them that we had to save the world with it, they would probably be okay with it, although again, maybe not. They have kind of a weird speech pattern, accent, and again, most of them are really focused on just how weird we look without a mask. Now there's two of them over here that look a little bit different. They actually will sell you items. So very basic items here, and the other guy will actually sell some weapons and also the Gaia drum. They're all weaker than stuff we already have, so not really worth it. So now I'm going to head back to that intersection that I showed you before. Alright, so we're back at the intersection, so we're going to continue to the right and pick up some new spell tomes. And by new, I mean they're not new in that we haven't seen them before, but they're new because they add something extra to our inventory. So we get Scourge, we get Blind, and for some reason they like to give you multiple of these tomes. It's almost like they're like, hey, you should use these, they're really awesome. But, spoiler, they're not. I mean, they have their uses. Not many enemies in the game are actually weak to poison, which is what Scourge does. So I don't really find a good use for it. I know earlier in my LP I actually was training Maria to learn Scourge, but then I figured that's time I could be using to build up my other spells, so I actually just dropped the spell, so she doesn't have it anymore. And Blind is not super useful either. The only real ailment spell that's worthwhile is the sleep spell, so if you want to use that, that's fine. It can be multi-targeted. This is another intersection. There are multiple paths here. We're going to start with the south path, which takes us to this chest up here a little bit to the north, which is actually guarded by some undead. So you get a Phoenix down, and ironically, you take on some undead. So now we're going to head back to the intersection, and we're going to head to the right instead. But again, Curse, of course, is also another useful ailment, so those are the two that I would consider. I don't really use either. If I want to curse something, I just use the Ancient Sword. And again, Sleep, why not just use something like Mini or Teleport or Toad and just kill everything instead of putting it to sleep? They're just going to wake up eventually, and, you know, it's not really worth it in my opinion. So we're almost done here with this particular path. This leads to 3 chests and then also another monster in a box encounter. So you get the Gaia drum here, and we also will take on some monsters. So we'll face the Wild Horn and the Poison Toad. Again, these guys basically just physical attack. So nothing special about them. Pretty quick and easy to kill. And the Gaia drum, what that does is it causes basically an earthquake spell. Alright, so we're back at the intersection here, and we have one more kind of dead-end path to follow, and then one more actual path to follow to continue with where we need to go, which is the bottom of this area. So the dead end is over here to the west or left, so we just need to head down these stairs and grab this item, which is the Death Idol. And then we will continue to kill random encounters and head over to the right. A few more floors and areas to go through, and then we will actually get the Black Mask. And unlike the White Mask, the Black Mask is actually defended by or guarded by a boss. So we need to prepare for that, and I will do that and meet you back here in a little bit. Alright, so that's a big horn, I guess. So it is a palette swap of the other encounter we faced. These guys are called Bighorns. They have roughly 2,000 hit points, give or take, maybe closer to 1,500. And so standard kind of procedure here, do your Berserk on your characters to up their physical attack to ridiculous levels, and then take them out as quickly as possible. Although they're not super dangerous, they really just use physical attacks. So I'm not super concerned about them. We'll see how many rounds it takes to kill them. Shouldn't take too long. And you'll notice that I didn't miss with Protect on Layla there. That's because I have equipped more armor on Furion, and so his spell efficiency has actually gone down. which increases the chances that basically you'll miss with spells. If you really want to make sure you hit with a spell, what you need to do is basically de-equip a character of as much equipment as possible, and that'll allow them to as close to 100% hit with something. But we are almost done here. One more round should be enough to kill the bighorns, and that will give us our second mask, the black mask. So again, not super tough. They're pretty easy. So now that we've taken them out, let's grab the chest behind them. And we get the black mask. So now we have both masks. So you might think, okay, now I have to go back to Mysidia and actually put the black mask on that statue or do something with the statue. And you would be wrong. We need to actually head to another cave with the black mask, and that is to use the mask to disable the doppelganger we heard about in Mysidia. So we're going to head back to the Mysidia area. I'm going to rest, sell some stuff, and then eventually we're going to head to what's called the Mysidia cave or cavern right here. So I will meet you at the cavern in a little bit once I do all that. Alright, so I've unloaded all my stuff, my extra equipment, I've rested, and then I've come down here to the cave of Mysidia. This is a pretty quick dungeon. Couple of pretty good items in here actually. We get some new armor that's pretty powerful. So the golden hairpin, we actually got one of those a while ago with Layla when she joined our party. So I'm going to equip that on Maria, because that increases not only defense but also agility. And then there's another piece of armor over here, which is called like the black garb or the black suit or something like that. Black garb. And that also increases agility and also defense. So I'm going to stick that on Guy, and he will use that. So now all of my party members, Firion, Maria, and Guy, actually are equipping armor that increases their agility. And the next area we go to will actually give us some other light armor that allows us to increase physical attacks. So I'll have to consider which to do. But here is the doppelganger. We're going to use our black mask on him to make him disappear. Gotta say, he looks pretty good though. He's a fetching young man. Or whatever. So the mask and the creature vanish, and that allows us to continue onward. So again, pretty mazy area. A lot of empty trap rooms that don't really have anything in them. A lot of items that you've already acquired. Weapons and armor. A lot of invisible walls you can walk through to get some of the items you see. So again, you can decide if it's worthwhile to go to these extra places to grab the items. I'm just grabbing everything because that's the point of a walkthrough, right? Oh man. And you'll fight some new enemies like the cockatrice. So these guys are infamous, right? They can petrify or stone your entire party. So we're going to try to kill them quickly. Now, fortunately for us in this game, we've been working on our evasion the whole time. So we're at pretty much 99 evasion for everybody. We've maxed it out, which means they're going to have a really hard time inflicting us with the petrify status. So good luck to you, buddies. Chances are we're going to kill you before you can do that. But don't take them too lightly. Don't hang around and practice too much of your magic here. Just kill them as quickly as possible. Another thing of note in this area, kind of the last thing of note, is that there are some previous bosses as random encounters, just like other dungeons. And so the Rios, which was the green chimera enemy, that is actually now a random encounter you can get in this area. And you can face up to 4 to 6 of them, so be aware of that. Lots of them, and they are still as powerful. Again, with those creatures, what to realize is not that they're dangerous in terms of their physical or magical attack power. As we face some bombs here, the palette swap of the bomb enemies, the most powerful version. They're weak to fire. So you can decide if you want to use that, or I'm going to show off some of my magic here, like Holy. Pretty cool effect there with Holy when you multi-target it. They're not super strong. Again, roughly 400 to 500, maybe 600 hit points, so they go down pretty fast, especially if you're able to inflict them with the toad status. But we'll just regular attack and kill them. But yeah, a lot of the enemies in this area not super tough. The main thing to be concerned about is some of the enemies can, petrify you. So just be aware of that. If you buy golden needles at the item shop, that will allow you to cure that status. Or if your Isunia spell is actually high enough in level, you can also cure it with that. So that's why it's useful to continue to work on Isunia. Get it up to around level 8 or 9 or 10, and then it'll cure pretty much everything except death. You'll still need a life spell for that. But we're actually almost done with this area. This dungeon is pretty short, and especially when you know kind of where you're going. This is the only non-trap room in this area, and all it gives us is some items that allow us to heal ourselves. So we only have maybe one floor left, maybe two, but I think it's only one. And again, there's no boss. So all we're doing in here is looking for the crystal rod. And that is ultimately what we need to get to the Mysidia Tower. Alright, and now we have some other new enemies, the ghosts. These guys, again, undead, so you can use your life spell, you can use fire. Not super tough, but a little stronger than the previous versions we faced. Let's see how many we can take out. Only 2. Not too bad. So we need that crystal rod to access the Mysidia Tower to get Ultima, and that's why we're here. And it is in a chest on this floor or the next floor. Might be this floor. Not 100% sure. And then once we get that, we will go back to Mysidia. I will rest. As usual, I will sell off stuff. And then we will continue onward next time towards Mysidia Tower. So running low a little bit here on MP. I've been practicing my swap spell a lot. And so that basically has been killing my MP a little bit. We have another inner area here that can be accessed through a wall that is not truly there. They changed a lot of these items actually in this version compared to the original. So these used to be all potions, but they actually added some new stuff that's worthwhile. And that's one of the things too about the modified versions, the remakes. Ooh, Malboros. Okay, these guys are not as dangerous as later games. They will paralyze you sometimes, but that's about it. They don't use their bad breath attack, so you don't have to worry about getting hit by a ton of ailments at the same time. But they changed a lot of the chests as the game goes on. They got rid of some of the useless chests, although many of them are still useless, don't get me wrong. But they put in better stuff in a few of the chests, and then they moved some of the items around. So we actually have not been able to get one of the strongest weapons in the game yet, because we can't get it. It's been moved to a later chest. So if you're playing the NAS version, you would have gotten that weapon. It's called the Blood Sword, and I'll talk about it when we actually get it. But for us, we can't get it yet because it's not available. But soon, viewers. We'll get it soon enough. So this is the last room in the dungeon. This is where we'll get the crystal rod. We'll teleport out of here. And next time with the crystal rod, we will access the Mysidia Tower to go after Ultima. So as always, viewers, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and I'll see you all next time as we head for the ultimate magic. So long.